So I had a computer problem. I had a computer that looked a lot like this thing right here. And I'm using it, and all of a sudden the screen comes up and it says Windows, something to the effect of Windows needs to repair your computer. There's a lot of different options. There's some kind of repair option. There were a lot of options. I go through, find the problem, diagnose the problem, fix the problem, all these things like this. Each one sends me back to this, there's a problem, Windows needs repair type issue. It is Windows computer. You can pick up on what I'm putting down here. So I go through all these options, nothing fixes it. It keeps coming back to, it doesn't work. And I try to restart. I try to restart in safe mode. I try everything, and nothing works. Like the computer, it just will not load Windows. Like I'm working fine, right in the middle of just being on the computer, doing what I normally do. Boom, get this screen. Cannot get out of it. And eventually I work my way through all these options, and it's like, yeah, do you want to restart in safe mode, which doesn't work, or do you want to shut down? Those are my options. Restarting safe mode doesn't work, so I have to shut down. Well, that's not very good. So I initially diagnosed this as, it's an older computer, a number of years old, like 6 or 7 years old. So I was thinking motherboard. That was wrong. Now, I didn't realize that was wrong until down the line. I have two computers exactly like this. I had one where the power supply, it went out, replaced it with one off eBay that was like a direct fit, but that was old too. That one went out in about a month. But it's only like $5. I'm like, it's worth the risk. So I was thinking motherboard. So I was thinking the computer I have has the bad power supply. It's got a good motherboard. I'm gonna swap all the peripherals, all the hardware over, and see what happens. Now here's why that was wrong. The computer would go far enough to boot Windows and then go into we have a problem. Well, if it was the motherboard, I would not even get past the BIOS. I would just get the B-side, the blue screen of death. I realize that now because of what has transpired. Shortcut to the end of the story, the computer's up and running and working now. I'm going to tell you how I got there, but I did a lot of unnecessary effort to do that. So I did switch everything over from this computer to the one that looks exactly like it, everything, and it's not bad. Before I started working on computers, they were scary. They're expensive. There's lots of things, lots of fragile things, and you don't mess it up. But after you start working, you're like, whatever, it doesn't matter, because it really doesn't. I don't think I have much in this. So in this one, I just have the motherboard. This is a computer that it stopped working, and it turned out, for whatever reason, it's just a Windows issue. I don't know why Windows just decided to stop working and other things, but that was the issue. And so how did I repair this? I didn't buy a hard drive. I had another hard drive. I reformatted it, and I installed fresh Windows on it. Because this computer, I do all this work, swap everything over, swap the hard drive over, I turn it on, I get the exact same screen. There's repair, automatic repair, doesn't work. And then finally you go through all these different options of trying to repair it and fix it and find it, diagnose it. And it's like, hey, do you want to start in safe mode, which will not work, or do you want to shut down? What do? You cry. There's no computer. Oh no, it's so bad. So at that point, I realized when I had the same issue with the motherboard I know is good, it's got to be something on that hard drive. And for whatever reason, it's just the software. It's a software issue. So the hard drive is in question. And the thing too, that hard drive I'm having a problem with, I plugged it into another computer. I have an external hard drive cable, and I can access the hard drive perfectly fine. I can access all the files, everything. Like nothing was lost. And still nothing is lost. I can still access it. But for whatever reason, Windows just would not boot or load or do anything. I couldn't get into Windows. So I reformatted a new hard drive. And the way to do this, and so this kind of piggybacks on my other computer video where I built a computer for my son, because I kind of had some of that basic knowledge. I just installed Windows recently. So what you do, if you just search probably like Windows, this is Windows 10, if you search Windows 10 installation media, it'll take you to the Windows site, and you can download, I believe it's an ISO file, I could be wrong, but it is a file, it's directly from the Windows site, and you need to double click that and it'll install, you install it directly onto a USB, and that's what I did so I can install Windows on this hard drive I have. I think you need at least, is it 8 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes, somewhere there. It needs to be a fairly sizable USB. So I did that, put that into the computer that has I formatted the hard drive on the other computer. I've got a lot of computers floating around in this house, a lot. Put that in, button everything up, put the USB drive in. As Windows as I'm entering the BIOS for the computer, I hit enter. In this case, it's enter. This will know system. You got to hit enter, enter, enter. You just keep hitting it until you bring up the BIOS. And I changed the boot order to boot USB first. So when you do that, and then you load into, you start loading everything, it's going to come up, install Windows, which is, yes, what I want to do. And so I went back, I had a video of my son installing Windows on my son's computer, And with that video, I found that video, but what that guy did is he took the installation ISO off the USB, installed it directly onto the hard drive, creating a new partition. I didn't want to create another partition. I kind of learned from that. I didn't really want to create a partition. I just wanted to install Windows straight and not worry with that. On that one, and the whole reason I came to that video is I was trying to install Windows and I kept coming up with an error. I went to that video and that worked around that, where I didn't have that error. Never had that error whatsoever on this, because in that one, I can't remember what the error was. It's in that video, and then there's another thing where you had to convert to GPT. Well, for this install, I converted to GPT, and Windows told me, oh, we can't install this on a hard drive that's been converted to GPT. I don't know why, man. It's all the same thing. What's the difference? But I couldn't. So this is completely my fault, and there's something to pay attention to. I go through this install of Windows, and it says it's installing, and then I come back, and it's on the install the Windows screen. I'm like, what the heck? I clicked install Windows, installing Windows. Why is it telling me to install Windows again? And I go through that, and I try to install it, and it says Windows already installed. It's like, well, you're telling me to install Windows. What's going on? If you realize what I've done here, I changed the boot order to boot USB first. So when I installed Windows, I didn't sit there and watch it. I'm not going to sit there and watch it install Windows. I left. I came back. Well, it's boot USB first, so when I came back, it had booted off the USB first. The hard drive had Windows on it. It was installed. It was fine. I just didn't click in my head that I'd done boot USB first, so I thought something had gone awry. Nope, everything was working perfectly fine. The error was a loose nut between the computer and my brain, which is me. That's the problem. So I ended up reformatting the hard drive again, doing it all again, and this time I sat there and I watched it, and as soon as it installed, and it did it, as soon as it installed and restarted, and it went to the USB, it's like, oh, as soon as I saw the BIOS screen initiating, I was like, oh, it's going to run from the USB, so I hit enter, did the temporary, I think F12 is temporary boot order, change to the hard drive. Guess what, Windows comes up. Windows, once you start it, Windows is going to go through a lot of different things of installing and fixing and doing, and not really fixing, but doing, as it completes the install before you finally, it takes a while. So then once that was done, Windows is on the computer, it's working, it works now, it's great. I did have to go back in and change the boot order, because I wanted to boot hard drive first, not USB first, because I don't keep a USB in there. So one other thing, I've got my old hard drive, which just for whatever reason decided to stop working, stop letting Windows do anything. That I can still access all the files on it, so I plugged that into the computer, restart. While I restart at this point, I change the boot order to do hard drive first, and make sure you know which hard drive is which. I mean, in this case, I knew it would be the one with the lowest number would be the one I want to boot off of, because the other one is high number. And a lot of times your motherboard will say which number SATA drive it is. So I plugged it in, cut the computer back on, and it boots fine, which it should. But I don't see this additional hard drive. You know, my hard drive that has all these files that I would prefer to have access to. And I was like, well, I know sometimes you have to like do things in the BIOS, you know, like turn ports on. I was like, is the port turned off? I don't know. So I hit restart. And as I'm seeing the another screen come up, I'm hitting enter to try and enter BIOS, and I guess I didn't do it quick enough, or I didn't hit enter enough times, and it starts to boot. Well, as it starts to boot, it comes up with repairing disk. I'm thinking, crap, it's like, I just installed this. Is this bad too? No, it turns out, I guess, this is pure speculation, because I don't know what's going on. I guess it fixed my disk that it couldn't access before, because when the reboot finished, finished repairing disk and it booted into Windows, that disk works all of a sudden. So that's a lot. I do have a video of me replacing all these parts. I'm probably going to tag it on the end of this, just because, you know, if you're kind of concerned about what all these pieces do, how these parts fit together, well, that's kind of a good video where I take everything out and put it right back in this case, to no avail whatsoever. But if you have an issue where Windows is stuck in this automatic repair loop and you can't get out of it because it can't fix it, the best thing to do is to get a hard drive and just fresh install Windows. I did Google to see, you know, I Googled after the fact, after I did all this, like, oh, was there an easier way? And I Googled some things about how to repair, and a lot of it was, oh, download this tool, or download this tool, and do all these things. I would err on just get a hard drive, either, and I've got a bunch of hard drives flying around, so it was easy for me to get one, reformat it, put it right back in there. I just need a fresh install of Windows. That fixed my problem. And your other drive, if you want to access what's on it, it's great to have an external SATA drive cable, which I have. So I had the computer I built my son, I was able to access the hard drive that screwed up with that one, see what was on it, make sure I could access those files, which I could. Great, pulled off the files I needed immediately. I've been working on my son's computer. He loved that, of course. And once I got the new operating system on the hard drive, put it in there, put the other drive in there. If you load it in and that hard drive, the computer can't access it, try restarting. In my case, just restarting it was enough for Windows to recognize that disk and repair it according to Windows. You may need to turn on that hard drive in the BIOS. And I don't know where it is exactly, but I know, like for the startup, for the boot order, there is a menu that is startup. And you just want to enter startup, and it's going to list, like in this case, it lists CD drive, my main hard drive, my secondary hard drive, and then something in a PCI slot. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the graphics card, but I don't know why it would list that in the boot order, but I don't know. Like, I know just enough to be dangerous with computers. With all that said, computer's up, it's running, that is good. It's a very old computer. I'm kind of like fingers crossed, like I hope I can get another year out of it because it's old. I hope it lasts forever, but I think that's unrealistic. But I just built my son a computer, so when it does finally give up the ghost, well, I've built a computer. That process, the first time is going to be the most difficult time because I was kind of learning the language, learning all the little details of this. When I build a computer the second time, it's going to be a lot easier. And that's what I'll end up doing. I'm going to build a computer for myself when this one gives up the ghost. But I hope it doesn't. I hope it lasts forever, as realistic as that is. But that's it. And now you can check out me taking all these pieces off the computer. And like the two computers are identical. I have two identical computers, right? So I took all the parts off one, put on another. That's what it is. Have fun with this video. And really, I'm just making this video because I'm going to forget this sequence of events and what I did and how I did it. And I'm going to forget. And one day I'm going to be like, what did I do? What happened? That's why I have this video. So I can check this out and remember what I did when this happens again. Alright, I've got a new project. I've got two computers I need to combine into one. I recently rebuilt my son's, I didn't rebuild. I built my son a computer. He had the money. I wanted to build a computer. It worked out great. And he'd been using one of my old computers. The problem with that was the power supply. Power supply was not working. We replaced it with a cheap one off eBay. It only quit working too. We knew that's a possibility. It happens. The computer I use, it is older. Back to the game. And it had a fatal error. The computer told me, had a major error. It tried to repair it. It tried to fix it. I went through every possible option until the final option was, yeah, we can't fix this. I guess you just have to shut it down forever. So after I exhausted all the other options multiple times, I went with that. So I am going to combine the pieces of these two computers and see if I get something that works. I don't expect it to last forever. I don't expect it to last years. But if I can just hop along for a little bit longer as I figure out what I want to do, I think I'm going to build myself a computer, build my son one. I'm going to build me one. Because you can get a better machine if you build it yourself as opposed to buying one pre-bought. And I had a lot of fun building one, so I'm going to do that again. But it seems like it is a hardware issue with this computer. The hard drive seems to be functioning fine. So I don't know if it's motherboard related. That's kind of my guess. I'm going to take, on the one that had the fatal error, I'm going to take the memory, graphics card, the power supply, optical drives off of that one and put it onto this other one. The only problem with it was the power supply. The power supply, it cut out every so often, and it got progressively worse and worse and worse. So I'm going to hope that the motherboard's good. I'm hoping I can just swap everything over, and we're in business. Will it be that simple? I don't know. I hope it will be. That is kind of the prevailing thought. If it doesn't work, well, then I'm just going to push up my build a computer project a little bit quicker. We're swapping internals from one to the other, and we're going to see what happens. Relatively straightforward, I do believe. So this is a computer that had the fatal error that could not recover. So again, I'm just going to swap power supply, memory, graphics cards. I did take the fan out of the one because I didn't think I'd ever use it again. I just kind of had to sit around waiting for the day I was going to throw it away. There are no hard drives in this one currently. I took the hard drive out to pull some information off of it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to reinstall the operating system. Just in my limited experience, when you swap hard drives with motherboards and all that stuff, it's best to do a fresh install of Windows, so I'll probably have to do that. Optical drive up here. Another one, it's pretty much stripped down. I mean, the power supply's out, there's no memory, none of this stuff is in there. I just need the swap fan, all this other stuff over to that motherboard. There's not a lot to this. The memory, there's little tabs at the top and bottom. You just push to pull those cards out. The power supply has some screws in the back. It's, of course the wires connect to everything in here. You just have to disconnect each one. I mean, these two computers are identical. This fan, it screws in here. There's a cord right there. The graphics card, I think there's a catch right here for this to release. I think there might be some screws in the back. Might not even be any screws in the back. I'll have to double check that. I mean, I have done this. It's been a while. So it really is as easy as unplugging from this one, plugging it into this one. Now, I'm leaving the video card out just so I can access some of these lower ports. Some of these wires, if you're like, oh, you unplug it and you kind of forget where they go. Well, some are color-coded, like that orange matches that orange. There's a blue that matches a blue. And usually the pins, it's like there's multiple places for it to go. There's only a couple places things can go, so it makes it pretty easy plugging it back and forth. I cut these little rubber grommets off for the fan. You can see the fan, they just kind of go in there. Well, all I'm doing is pulling from the back end and then just using a screwdriver to push the edges in and get them out. And as long as you're pulling from the back end and push those edges in little by little all the way around, it'll pop right out. And then I guess I can just use pliers to pull the new little rubber grommets in all the way to the fan seats. You can see I've taken everything out except for the memory cards out of that one. This one, I've got the power supply sitting on top. I'm about to reroute that. All the little accessory plugs are in. So the only hard part would be, will this motherboard work? It should. It did. I mean, really, the only issue before was the power supply. I'm putting in a known good power supply. So I think we'll be okay. All the parts have been swapped over. I just need to figure out which hardware I'm going to use. I'm pretty sure that the hard drive, motherboard, that Windows is going to want me to reinstall Windows. That's just been my experience in the past with doing things like this. I'm going to hope, maybe not, plug in my own hard drive and hope everything just boots right up fine. But I'm kind of doubtful. Not a very involved project. It makes it very easy when you're swapping from two computers that are identical one to the other, because there's nothing like, oh, this one has this one does not. These were identical, so the swap was very easy. I hope it works, because these computers are old. The one I'm swapping to, the dates on it are 2015, 2016. Yes, that is correct. The one I'm swapping from, the dates are 2016 and 2018. There's just dates on different pieces of the case. So yeah, these are very old computers. I've replaced parts on them before, keeping them going along, and we'll see where it goes. Before I'd ever open a computer case, I was scared of what could go wrong if you open this computer case. I mean, how do you replace stuff? And once you get into it and open the case and poke around, it becomes a lot easier. I'm a lot less hesitant. Like when I think the first thing I ever did was replace the memory, and I was so concerned I was gonna mess something up. Now I swap memory in and out like it's nothing, because it's not. And after building a computer, pulling out the power supply, I pulled out the power supply and replaced it once before. Doing it again, wasn't a big deal. Computers, before I cracked it open, they seemed so complicated. Now they're pretty simple. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of wiring that goes to it. There's a lot of technology to it. But if you're putting the components together, it's not that bad. So hopefully this computer will give me some more time.